When you think of the philosophy of a global energy manufacturing company, love, honesty, and respect may not be the words that first come to mind. But in the hands of Rani Puranik, EVP of Worldwide Oilfield Machine, these are not just business concepts, but a way of life, building a legacy of arts, education, community, and purpose. Join me for my conversation with Rani Puranik. And of course, Rani, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I guess the best place to start is, when did you come to know who you truly were?
Who I truly am? I would say that every day I am a different person. It doesn't mean drastically different, but I'm evolving every day. I'm not the person that I was when I was 18 or 35 or 45, right? Mm-hmm. Experiences have definitely shaped me, molded me. We always come back to that analogy of we were born like a clump of clay, right? And somehow we're shaped and formed, and the vase that you see today, it's still a work in progress, right?
When you talk about being born as a clump of clay, and you think about evolving and changing and becoming who you are, being a mother though, you have children, and they come out with oftentimes a very unique personality, who they are, so there is something innate in who we are, do you think?
There is something innate in who we are, you're very right, and the more and more I think about it, every person, of course, as we know, is uniquely designed, uniquely tailored in their lifetime. I really believe, and I'm asked this question all the time, it's like, like what's power, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll see where I'm gonna bring this back again, is power for me, and I get all these sort of answers, power is energy, power is, the ability to impact positive change, yada, yada, but power really is that authenticity. So who we are is really hidden in our authenticity, which means that when we show up without competing, when we show up without judgment, when we show up without any sense of insecurity or fear, then that's authentic, and that's really who we are as individuals. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Did you see that though in your daughters? And did you see different attributes, different strengths, even when they were children?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So as a mother, as a friend, you see these children definitely that are born from you, but they have their unique personalities, but is there a common thread that I could see with them, in them? And that would probably be yes. So they have some innate gifts is what I would say, right? So they're very empathetic, they're very loving, very kind. And for me as a mom, when I see those unique traits, I try to say, all right, well, this is who you are in your natural self. Now, how can I help you be the best version of that you can possibly be?
So I guess where I'm getting with that is understanding when you know is the right time to imprint what you believe your child can be, without taking away who they themselves truly are. How to figure that balance. And you'll see where I'm going with this in just a second.
No, absolutely, and I love the question. It reminds me of a quote by Khalil Gibran, and in one of the verses it said that children do not come for you, though they come from you. So children are children. They will find their ways in their unique gifts and talents that they are born with, right? Mm-hmm. So when I say that they're not born for me, they're not born to satisfy my voids or my, let's say, parts of my childhood that I may have missed. They're not born for that. They're not to fill some sort of gap that I may have had. They are here to fulfill their purpose. And I was always very aware of this from the very beginning. So I've always said to my kids is that as a mother, and I always say this, even as a mother, that role changes throughout their lifetime, right? So I started off as a caregiver, then later on I'm a mother, later on I'm a friend. Now we call each other base friends, right? I'm not their best friend, I'm a base friend. Anything happens in life, you can come back home. Throughout my life, I've told my kids this, is that the most joy that I will ever have is to see you fly, to know that you know the direction of your flight, and to also know when it's time to come home, when it's time to rest, so that you can recharge, you can reflect, and then you're off to your flight again. So I've always been very aware that every individual comes with a special purpose.
Okay, and this is where we switch. So it wasn't until you were 40 that you decided to get heavily into business. Those lessons, do they change the way you manage, the way you envision a business? Is it your imprint on what you want it to be or what it should do, or is it recognizing the talents that are innately there and encouraging that?
Love the question. So even though, yes, I got heavily involved in the energy industry at 40, I ran my own dance company for about 15 years, and that was at the age of 24. So people who knew me from my dance company world, and they see me in this sort of, US corporate energy world, they always ask me this question. It's like, what's the similarity? What's the difference? The similarity throughout any business is people. I always say it takes great people to make a great company. So the management style is, honestly, it's the same. So it's not that I want to impose what I see or what I feel or what I think. It's like, all right, this is the capability of a business, whether it's a dance school or whether it's an energy company. Mm-hmm. If this is the potential, then what kind of talent do we have? How can we collaborate? How can I make sure that I am providing all the necessary resources, tools, environment, so that every person can really show up and be their best selves in a collaborative way? So, do I have a vision? Yes, I have a vision. I always say it's kind of, it's a bit much out there, I get it. I have a 200-year plan, I get it. But I could speak about a 200-year plan all day long. If people are not convinced, they're not going to follow. Mm-hmm. They're not going to take their own strides. They're not going to take their own lead. So it's the way that we bring together people is what makes the difference.
It makes me wonder then, do you believe that there are absolute truths? Are there lessons that can be applied no matter what the situation is, and that you should follow those?
Ooh, there's one absolute truth that yes, I believe in, and people in the corporate world don't talk about it very much, but I openly say it, and it's love. There's an absolute truth in love. And I say this with all the understanding of my life, that love is one way. Love is one way, which means when I share my wisdom, my truth, my passion, not necessarily will it come back to me in the same way or the same person or the same manner, not even the same company sometimes, but it's a flow. That's the absolute truth of love. It's flowing, it's continuously growing, it's continuously expanding. Somehow, in some shape or form or person, it will come back. That's an absolute truth.
Kind of like energy?
And love is energy. Love is energy. It's not created, it's not destroyed, it just is transformed.
And so take me back to the beginning. When you began, when you came into this world, this was not the plan for you.
The first 18 years of my life, I was in Houston, Texas, even though I was born in India. Then the next 18 years of my life, I lived in Pune, India. I was married there. It was an arranged marriage, completely different world. And then when I was, in 2008 is when I decided to return back to home for me, which is Houston. So taking you back really is about what's my purpose? Mm-hmm. What's my assignment? I've always been in search of God. What does that higher power mean? What's this meaning of life? And I would say that every 7 years, very distinctly, for some reason, every 7 years, I was able to experience very specific lessons of life, and usually kind of contributed into a lesson of love, a lesson of leadership that actually I carry with me even today, and a lesson of sort of legacy too. It's like, what does legacy even mean? I didn't know this when I was 7 years old or 14, no, right. But now when I reflect back, I'm like, oh, that's what I had to go through to understand that lesson. So it's been that, but the constant in all my years, whether they were like these 7-year phases or whatever, has been an innate search of who am I.
Yeah, I love the 7 years because, as we know from biology class, our whole body replenishes within 7 years, so we're always new people. And yet you have found it materially in your life that at those 7-year periods.
Correct. And it was unbelievable. Again, you don't know it when you're in those phases. You look back, and from the very beginning, 0 to 7, I thought I was a daughter, but actually I was a girl. Culturally, being the firstborn, even as a girl, there's a different nuance to it. And even though I was raised in the United States, my parents were first-generation immigrants who came from India, and that's what they knew. There's no fault at all, but that's what they knew, and that's how I was raised, where I was not a boy. I was reminded of this all the time. I'm not a boy. So when you have this, a little bit of an ache in your heart where, I'm just not good enough. I wasn't what was expected of me. Then I started to sort of race my own sense of worth. Well, how can I be worthy? How can I be okay? How will I be validated? So that's sort of the first 7 years of my life where I was like, oh, well, I'm not a daughter, actually, I'm a girl.
Life lessons learned then about not being a boy. Do they apply now in the business world when you're not seen as a man in the oil business?
They really do. They really do. And the first thing is that I realize is you cannot judge. It's not about a gender. It's about your merit. It's about how you show up for yourself. How empathetic are you? How respectful are you? How aware are you about your surroundings and who you are in those surroundings? Nothing to do with gender.
Yeah. Did you find through those early years a lack of belonging? And by that I mean in Houston, you're an Indian girl. In India, you're an American. I mean, did that play, and how do you find balance in that? And how do you build self-confidence when the world may be looking at you differently than you see yourself?
That's a great question. So yes, so many of people who kind of have the same background as me, you know, where it's hard to find your identity when the world is imposing their views on you. As it is trying to find who you are, it's a complex question, right? I mean, like I said, even today, I probably don't have all the answers. But at that point, how do you find your confidence? I'll tell you, it's not easy. And we don't have confidence. There were points in my life where I would sit in the corner, mind my own business, and no, I would not come across as confident. I would come across as very shy, not wanting to say anything. And in India, when I was there, people, as you very well said, thought that I was an American. So whatever stereotypes come along with that sense, and you kind of wonder, where do I fit into any of this? And at the end, it's about that heart. At the end, the only place that gave me confidence was to say, am I hurting anybody? No. Am I harming myself or anyone by speaking, by sharing? No. Well, then continue. I call it like right foot, left foot, because when we don't have all the answers, and you have to kind of start with what you do know. And what I do know is that if I'm at peace, I'm trying to find peace. We're not always at peace, you know. But if I am at some sense of peace, and I know that what I'm doing is with a really good intention, not to harm anybody or myself, then take the next step. Oh, it seems to be pretty good out here. All right, well then take the next step. And then while you're doing it, continue to reflect. Look back for just a second. Hey, how far did you come? Are you on the right track? Are you on the right track? There's a lot of self-talk in this, because no one else is going to tell you.
For people who don't know your story and may assume you grew up the daughter of a CEO, not exactly how that played out. No, it did not. I had not planned to be the incoming CEO or EVP or any of this. My first passion has been singing. I am an Indian classical vocalist. Oh yes, and that is my first heart, that is my first passion. And I thought I was going to be a singer. That was my thing. And of course, you know, life took a turn. I went to India after I graduated from Lamar High School here in Houston. And while I was there, just happened to come across a very impoverished area where I was living next door to. And one thing led to the next, and I started teaching these kids after school for like 2 hours. Like one child ended up being 60 kids in my parents' vacation house. So even though I was singing, I was going to college and teaching these kids, life really took a turn at that point. And I was married. I was married within the year. Like I said, it was an arranged marriage. So my plans and my hopes of even being a singer, they took a pause. Though the funny part is that during the arranged marriage, I'll tell you, I was like, all right, this is a business transaction, right? This has got to be a business transaction because clearly there's no love in this thing. And I had been kind of raised in the business itself. Like I was a backroom accountant, I drove forklifts, I labeled inventory, all of that was great and fun. So for me, I'd seen business all the time. So okay, I said, well, I'm getting married, so what are my terms? I'm gonna finish my education,
and I'm going to continue singing. Those were my terms.
You had terms. I love
my
that.
terms. And as soon as, my then husband, he said, yeah, that's fine. Like, done, deal, we're married. Not a problem. So I negotiated singing. I had my daughter within 2 years of me being married. And you can imagine, it's a joint family, and joint families are very common in India, right? So, and he was the eldest son, so responsibly, we had to stay with the parents and all of that. But here I am trying to sing, and anybody can imagine, if you're a dedicated professional singer, then you've got to spend those 4 or 6 hours of rigorous practice. You can't do it with a wailing baby and a baby's needs and all of that stuff, and taking care of a joint family household. So then singing really had to be put on a back burner. That was my first heartbreak. So if I thought I had a plan, well, clearly I didn't. As my daughter became 2 or 3 years old, 3 years old actually. In India, you just start kids at a very young age. They go to daycare, like pre-daycare, pre-daycare, all of that. So she went to an all-girls school at that time. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to be close to her. And that led me to go to the principal's office and say, tell me what you want. Anything you want, you want me to sing, dance, teach English, do whatever. I will do it as long as I'm in some sort of proximity to my daughter. She sort of looked at me up and down. She's going, well, can you dance? I'm like, yeah, I've got a fairly decent background in dancing. So the funny part is, and I had always discounted this, while I was living in Houston, I had learned Bharatanatyam, which is an South Indian classical dance form. I was competing in Indian folk dance and competing as a modern dancer. So I was like, you know what? I actually do have a pretty decent dance background. So as these girls started to come to me, they were very quiet, very reserved. I mean, you would think an all-girls school, they'd be like bubbly, hey, dance class. Nothing. And that's what it struck me, going, oh, these girls don't have a voice. They're being told what to do.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they came in the classroom, they were like the sing-song sort of tone going, good morning, teacher. I'm like, whoa, this is like really rehearsed. So how are you? We are fine. Like, okay, we're clearly not fine.
Yeah.
So that led me to, yes, teaching them dance for the school purposes, but then their parents started coming to me and saying, I've never seen our daughters so happy. So that led me to start my own dance company. So I use dance as a medium of expression for leadership, for team building, and for some reason the way that I was facilitating or teaching, it caught on so well that the government, even of that state, asked me to be involved in remand homes, which is like for juvenile delinquents, for deaf children, for a variety of schools within the city, even in Mumbai and Pune as well. And then we had like these cultural exchange programs between the Netherlands and Spain and Greece, and I mean, it just blew out of control from my mind. I thought nothing was planned.
Yeah.
Nothing was planned. But the only thing I'll tell you, if anyone asked me, hey, could you do this? I'm like, sure, I don't see why not, So
Yeah.
I've got this sort of mantra that I've always lived by. I don't remember where it came from or how it came. There's always a way. Yeah, sure, I can do it. There's always a way. And the other part is give me a challenge and tell me that I can't do it.
Right.
Not a good way.
Take me back, though, into the class, and you said about the change you saw in the girls. Do you know what it was that you were offering them that opened their eyes or started to change them?
It took me a little while to understand it, but I was giving them what I did not have, which was a safe place to express themselves. I did not have a safe space to just say what I wanted to say without being judged, without being discriminated. I didn't have that. And in my own way, I was able to provide that to them. And then they were just being empowered. And honestly, as they were being empowered, so was I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump you ahead a little bit. You turn 40.
Yeah.
Your life's going to change. Explain where you were at that moment and what led to the change.
So right before I was 40, again, I've been preaching to the world, step up to who you are, voice who you are, be confident, and have faith in what this higher power has given you. Be your best. I didn't know how to apply the same to my life. At that point, I'd already been married for like 17 years. It was that time to change. So when I did apply that to myself, that's when the story sort of flipped. And I said, look, respectfully, I need to find my own path. And that's when I came back to Houston, Texas, and I had to do it without my kids, which is a really very very painful story for me, but we were able to overcome that as well. Lots of lessons in that during that period, but at the age of 40, when the divorce, the custody, all of that started to settle, is when I said, if I'm going to give my best, I need to be my best. I need to learn my best. And I had already started helping my dad back in the business, so that was known to me. I did not have the ability to start my dance company from scratch again in Houston. Again, you're in the middle of life, right? So you've got the divorce, custody, financial stability, just everything. So I said, okay, we'll start with what you know. What I knew was WOM, because I had worked there as a teen. And that's when I said to myself, all right, so what can I do? And at 40, I remembered one of my past dreams that I had when I was living in Houston is to go to Rice University. So I said, well, let's go ahead and apply. If I want to learn the best, let's go to the best. And of course, at that time, I was criticized going, you're 40. Who goes to Rice? You're the daughter of the CEO, of the founder. You don't need to do anything. Why are you working? Why do you need to study? You got to get your GMAT. Why?
Right.
I said, number one, I don't believe on piggybacking off of someone's credit. I am who I am, so I need to understand that. If I'm going to be a certain person, then I need to know that I've deserved it and earned it. I'm pretty hard on myself, so me earning something means I've really gone there. I've gone that extra mile. I'm pretty sure about that. So that's what happened at 40. I decided to go back to school.
When you hear people say, I'm too old to start that, or that's not in the cards for me, this is the life, these are the things I've done, this is my lot in life, what do you say?
It's all in the mind, and we hear people say this all the time, right? And it truly, truly is in the mind. If we see that there's much more to our living, again, I go back to that sense of purpose. What was my sense of purpose? Is to be the best that I possibly could be. So if anybody, no matter of age and phase of your life, it's never too late. Never too late. Just go ahead and do it. Is it going to be easy? Well, nobody promised easy. Like, will it be successful? Absolutely.
So Mom has all this wisdom, and her daughters and her sitting along, and you decide, maybe Mom should write a book. Maybe I will.
Right.
And you have.
I have.
You've taken all of this and these stories and the 7-year breaks and put together a book.
I have. So that was the story, really. They were like, Mom, just write a book. I said, sure. So I've written quite a bit, especially during my dance days, right? So
I've learned one thing right now in this interview: never challenge you to anything.
I know.
I think that's
true. Yeah, I know. But all for good reasons, right. All for good intent, all for good intent, all for a bigger purpose, much further beyond me. But it has been quite a journey. I thought I had all the stories laid out and everything, but it took me about 3 years to actually finish the entire book. And
it's 7 letters to your daughters.
It's 7 letters to my daughters.
But it's not just your daughters.
No, it's not. It's daughters of the world, but it's also sons of the world, people of the world. My daughters inspired me to write, but the book is not only for them. As I mentioned, very in the beginning of our talk here, people are people, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or race. So the book is really for all people.
Talk a little bit about the breakup of the book and the 7 letters.
As I mentioned, the first 7 years and the next, as you kind of go on, started off with girl, then sister, and then, oh my gosh, where was I? Lady. And then I had to jump to mother, even though I was married, and then wife, and then woman. And then, of course, who I am now, which is a daughter. So that's kind of like the 7.
That fascinates me, that daughter is the 7th letter.
So, yes.
Explain that.
That's my spiritual journey. That is my spiritual journey. As I said to you, I thought I was born a daughter. I was born a girl. But who I am today, free as I am today, I'm the daughter of a supreme power. I'm a big God girl. Yeah. And throughout my life, I've been chasing for validation. And I thought that the earthly people in my life, whether they were my teachers or my dad, my mom, my cousins, even people within the company, had the power to validate me. So I was always looking for that approval, saying, well, am I your daughter? am I your daughter? But when the revelation for me came that I have a heavenly Father, and I'm that daughter to him, then nothing else mattered.
You have honesty as an important point in everything that runs through your life, even in business.
Yes.
Explain the significance of honesty, because I think in today's day and age, truth, fact, honesty are getting lost.
I don't know how else to be. People will call it honesty or truthful or transparent. I don't know how else to be. Does it mean that I speak with an unfiltered voice? No. It means that if it's not my place to say anything, then I'll keep quiet. But if I'm asked an opinion, or if I'm asked to share a vision or a purpose or a plan, then yes, then honesty will play. How it plays for me is that it gives me that sense of peace that I can go to bed at night, that I've not fooled anybody, and I have not steered anyone on a different direction than intended. For me, honesty is about legacy. It really is. If I am truthful today, again, being authentic to who I am, automatically I am building that path of legacy. And only honesty is going to get me there.
Talk about the concept of legacy also.
Legacy for me is, so my brother passed away in 2018, and he was not even 38 years old. That itself really, really hit me hard. You can imagine yourself, you're at the airport, and he passed away in Switzerland, and I was here in Houston. We were able to bring him by a private airplane. And again, like I was mentioning, you're at the airport and you're waiting for a loved one to come out of the airplane. And then what I saw was, yes, my brother did depart from that airplane, but in a casket. And that hit me like nothing else. I said, I'm not going to be here. My life is a very short life, and there have been so many lives that came before me and multiple lives that are going to come after me. What am I doing today? What am I doing today? So when that concept and that whole realization hit me so hard, I said, whatever choice I make today, whichever decision I make today, I have got to make sure that that next life who's going to come after me has stability, financial stability, emotional stability, career stability, family stability, as much as I can do in my lifetime right now, even if it is 20 years. 20 years is a little bitty tiny period. Legacy is not complete with one generation, but if I can plant that seed so that that seed is nurtured into a tree, into a huge oasis of just a forest, going way beyond my lifetime, then I've served my purpose, and that's legacy.
Does that kind of a vision ever overwhelm?
At times, yes, but at times, no, because I believe in people.
Yeah.
I believe in people. Yeah, sometimes it's overwhelming going, oh my God, I don't have enough time. But here's the reality. We always say, when I pass away, I'm not going to take anything, right? Everybody knows that. We came with nothing, we leave with nothing. It's the same concept when I go to bed. When I go to bed tonight, I'm not taking anything with me. So if I wake up in the morning, I ask myself, I ask God, well, what's my purpose for today? What's my assignment? And it goes back to legacy. That voice is very clear in my mind. Every decision you make, every choice you make it for the next person.
So how does the book fit into that?
The book is about that. So every 7 years, those significant lessons that I learned, those are those little seeds to establishing a person's legacy.
Yeah.
And legacy is incomplete without love. So love is like the connecting thread through my entire life. That's sort of that absolute truth that I live by.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Take all of this then back into the business world. Mm-hmm. Do people respect this concept, or do they look at you like, oh yeah, go have your love, we got a business to run here? How does it play out?
So I've been known as an empathetic leader. Yeah, so you can call it love or empathy, whatever. I say empathy is love doubled up. Yeah. Empathy means that I understand where you're coming from. So I understand my love that I have, and I understand the love that you have. So it's literally love doubled up. Okay, you can call it empathy, that's fine. So that's how I lead. I lead through empathy, because that's when there's an equilibrium established. That's when I'm not judging where you've come from, what day did you have, what's your career path. There's no judgment at all. I have a vision, that's true, but empathy gives me the ability to talk to you at whatever level that is, for you to say, hey, I think she does understand me. I am heard, I am loved, I am accepted and acknowledged. That's powerful, because that gives you freedom. Yeah. Every person is looking for freedom, and I know that the key to freedom is being empathetic. And once you have that key to freedom through empathy, then it's so much easier to rise together, to lift together.
You mentioned WOM, W-O-M. Mm-hmm. Explain what that is.
So WOM, this is the company that was started by my father about 42 years ago. The same company that I watched being built from 3 people, where I slept on the pantry floor, to today, where it's about 11 locations around the world. Houston is headquarters. Our largest footprint of about almost 3,000 people is in India, is in Pune, India. And as I mentioned, 11 locations around the world. We're about a $350 million company. So when Dad decided to hand over the torch, he's 78, by the way, he's very active. His playground is innovation. He's a metallurgist by profession, by trade, and that's where his heart is. He says, Rani, just handle the rest of the business. Let me go back to my playground. I said, gotcha, Dad. So where we are today is with a vision, for sure. In the next 5 to 7 years, we will be a $1 billion company. But here's the thing. Dad did a fabulous job in the way he grew the business and the footprint of the business, which is primarily a business. My mother, on the other hand, she started her own foundation about 20 years ago, and as you have already heard, my passion for people, whether it was a dance company or slum kids or whatever, right? And we're starting a charter school now in Houston. I kind of mixed all of that together and said, our vision in the next 5 to 7 years is not just to be a $1 billion company, but it's to impact 1 billion lives. That's the statement. Mm-hmm. So when now I go to open up different markets, I just came back from Brazil, I'm going to Mexico next week. I'm developing an ecosystem, and it goes back to that whole concept of legacy. So yes, we have a business. We know that only great people can create great businesses. But at the same time, if we are to make those decisions for the next lives, the next generations, then every area around the globe should become self-sufficient, have their own ecosystem, which means this: if I have the potential, if the company has potential to gain revenue from a certain region, I'm looking to build supply chains as much as possible in that same region. We're a technology company, which means that we're the SMEs, or the subject matter experts, in what we do for the energy industry, and also for other industries as well, by the way. So we are diversifying. But if we come in as the technology experts and we're able to train and teach people with whatever knowledge they have and empower them to really gather their own financial stability for their own families, their own companies, it's a win-win for everybody. Sure, will my margin decrease a little bit? Sure it will. What's going to happen? The revenue is going to increase, the volume is going to increase. All of a sudden I'm building villages of this entire ecosystem. It doesn't just end with the supply chain. Education. Education is key to my heart. So wherever we are partnering with schools, high schools, middle schools. What is entrepreneurship? What is creative thinking? What is critical thinking? How do you design sustainable energy solutions for your community that you can prototype and actually bring to realization? We fund that. And not just we, the entire WOM ecosystem starts to fund it. It's not just us in a silo anymore. It's a collaborative effort. That is what I'm building now, wherever I go.
If that was applied across the corporate landscape, how would the world be different?
The world would be in harmony. There would be no cutthroat competition. People would have that sense of stability and not have to look beyond what's going on. Of course, there would be trade and there would be, exchanges of goods, yes. But every country, every region, every neighborhood would start to feel whole again and not look for how to fill that void.
couple things you mentioned in there that I want to dig into. I loved how you offhandedly said, oh, and we're starting a charter school. That is a big undertaking in and of itself.
The charter school. So 6th through 12th. And our pathway is biotech with an underlying syllabus and curriculum of entrepreneurship and international business. In order to be successful, entrepreneurial skills have got to be in play. Entrepreneurial skills is what? It's basically creative thinking. And creativity stems from art. Who better to know than me, right? That has been my life. And that's the other part, right? I've seen the way my life was sort of planned out for me. I understand the value of art today when I'm running this multinational company. Nothing can stop me. I'm like, okay, if that's the obstacle, if that's the blockage, if this is my boundary that I've got to perform in, let's do it. We can find it. We can find a way. So going back to the charter school, that's what it's built on.
Talk to me a little bit about the importance of art education. I mean, I think your story illustrates it beautifully, but if you could mention it.
Art education is about opening the mind, opening the heart. We need to have both to be successful people. We've seen this time and time again. You know, wealthy individuals, no heart, no family. You're not satisfied. Or you've got a great heart, but you don't have the skills to build something that's sustainable for your family. Still not satisfying. You need to have both. Have the open mind, have the open heart. Here's another part. The world is continuously changing, continuously evolving. We always have uncertainties. People ask, well, COVID had an uncertainty. How do you deal with that? I'm like, folks, there's an uncertainty every single day. Sometimes I might wake up with a cough, or tomorrow I may have another, whatever happens in life. If uncertainty is a constant, this is where art comes into play. You'll find a way no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. You'll be able to evolve with the industry, with times. You're empowered.
So does it drive you crazy when you hear discussions about cutting art education funding because that's not going to put you on the right track for a job in the future?
It drives me nuts. So people are like, oh, we'll help you to build a hammer. We'll help you to build a light bulb. Okay, great, but what am I supposed to do with it? That's where art comes in. That's where the creative thinking comes in. So I know STEAM is a great thing and I love it, right? So science, technology, engineering, art, and math. I don't call it that way. I say just like we have P-Tech or all these fancy STEM plus M, right, for medical. I'm like, I want us to be an A STEM school. Arts first and then STEM makes sense.
When you talk about arts and creativity that comes from it, I can't help but think back to the story of your father, who didn't just sit there hearing about machines costing more money because they were wearing themselves down because they didn't have the right coating. And I know I'm simplifying this beyond so much. But your dad saw something that could be changed and created something to change it, which basically is art to me. And you're there as a child watching him do this. Is that where that piece fits in for you?
It probably does, because at the heart of what we do is art. When I talk about metallurgy, it's the science of metals. It's the art and science of metals. And that was the that's where all of our patents started to be originated from. We literally have a furnace in our shop. That's a glorified oven. When we play with metals and sprays and powders, that's chemistry. That's paint, that's art, that's metal, that's clay. So absolutely it stemmed from that.
And we've talked a bit about your father and his involvement in all of this and how it, but your mom, you've mentioned too, you know, it's the right hand and the left hand. You have both working. She's still involved with this.
She is heavily involved in this. So the Rani Puranik Foundation, we call it Puranik Foundation for short, was started about 20 years ago. So we own and operate a school in Pune, India for underserved children. Now we have 250 residential kids who live on campus, 27 acres of campus, sustainable land, absolutely. There's no running water or electricity. So my mom, being the non-engineer that she is, she developed all of these systems. 80% of our campus is sustainable. My mom lives on campus. Now, can you imagine this lady who basically, what I say, you know, could have painted her toenails all day long sitting in America, right? No, she decided that she needed to give back. Our entire family is this way. We are about people. So she left all the luxuries of the United States, went to India. She literally lives in a 10 by 10 room and sleeps on, a mattress because she wants to be with these kids. When my mom started about 20 years ago, I brought that concept to Houston about in 2015. I started getting more involved in our local Houston high schools and developed a study abroad program so our kids could understand how to be happy and successful in limited resources, to really value what their life is about. So that took off. And then now my older daughter, Bhakti, she is now the managing director of all the outreach programs for the United States for Puranik Foundation. That's legacy right there. It was started with my mom, me, and now my older daughter. And I'll also add one more thing. My younger daughter, who just graduated from college, she's in the process of building yet another part of the foundation, which is called Connecting Conversations Clearly. So we're all about bringing people together to have a safe platform to voice their opinions without any judgment, but just being able to speak up and express. That's legacy.
Last question. Are you working on an 8th letter now?
My 8th letter. So I get this question quite a bit. So now what's next? The way I see it is I've completed my 7 times 7. I'm 50 now, and I say it with pride. It's great. Great lessons that have been learned. And with all the lessons that I've learned, not that there's an 8th letter, but whatever I live today is in complete freedom. I'm still learning, still evolving, but now I'm doing it with freedom and a very, very deep sense of peace and faith to know who I am.
Rani Puranik, thank you very much. Such a joy.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ernie, for having me.
Thank you.